Today is Wednesday, December 4th, 2019, and the time is about 5:51 a.m. This audio, I should say, I'm going to talk about, again, the case involving Jeffrey Epstein, a victim by the name of Virginia Roberts, the owner of Victoria's Secrets, the prestigious school, Dalton School in New York City. I'm going to talk about all these things. These elements are very, very troubling to me. I first want to say up front, as it pertains to Virginia Roberts, one of the women, and when she was a teenage girl, was trafficked to do prostitution for the elites for a period of almost 2 years, and when she had an opportunity to split, she escaped. I believe her account on what happened. And I feel for her situation, and I think it takes a lot of bravery, tremendous bravery for her to escape and to come forward with this whole mess. So I commend her, and I commend the other now ladies, adults, who were victimized by Jeffrey Epstein and all those people who helped him carry out his evil deeds. I'm just going to share my thoughts about the whole thing. This audio that I'm doing is really about social awareness and hypocricies that society has in this whole matter of what they call human trafficking. So I do know that in course of this audio, I may say things that may not sound nice, but it's really designed for thinking as to promote preventions in the future from this happening. But my instincts are telling me that it's happening right now. There are many types of Jeffrey Epsteins in this matter. So just because he's dead doesn't mean that it's not happening anymore, even in his circle. So let me begin again. Just try to get some background information and the things that come to my mind. Because see, yesterday there was the day before yesterday was another interview with Virginia Roberts, one of the alleged victims of Jeffrey Epstein. And it just had me thinking again about this whole mess. It's like a big giant web, spider's web. And it just seems like everything is related to something else somehow. And I'm wondering how it all fits in. But this is a big network. And I'm wondering whether this whole thing, I feel uncomfortable to even say it because it's going to sound very, very biased / prejudice. But you have to ask yourself these questions. And again, not everybody who belongs to certain groups, are involved. But it's just really telling that with Jeffrey Epstein, that is a very strong, it's a conspiracy, I believe. And I'm wondering whether it's a Jewish Zionist conspiracy. You have prostitution everywhere on the planet, but this one really takes the cake because of the network involved of high officials. And the people involved, many of them, are Jews. This is not to say that all Jews are involved in such filth. I'm not suggesting that. But I'm questioning whether the people involved, the Jewish people that were involved in this, whether it's part of a larger operation of control and a means of controlling people, countries, the whole planet. So let me begin. Now, Jeffrey Epstein, he was raised in Brooklyn, New York City, in America. Not wealthy at all. I think blue-collar beginnings in Brooklyn. He gets into this famous college called Cooper Union. It's a school of engineering. You have to be very smart to get in that school. And back then, in those days, it was tuition free. So I think you just pay for textbooks. And yes, textbooks are very expensive. But he drops out and somehow is able to get involved in becoming a teacher at a private high-end school in Manhattan's East Side, Upper East Side. Very prestigious school. And some type of scandal happens there. Now, it is my understanding that if it's a private institution, that school for children, the Dalton School, is an elite school for the rich, famous, and it's very expensive to get in. You would think that they would have particular criteria to, credentials to teach there. And private schools could set up their own rules, and you don't have to have a teacher's license. Okay. But maybe in the future that school, if it's not, that requires the students to have a license to teach. But again, whether they have a license or not, if a teacher is a pervert and preys on young girls, regardless what credentials they have, they should not be in any contact with these students, these children. And it's interesting that something seems to happen at that school. And it is known that someone that's connected with the school knew an individual, an adult. I forget what the person's position was, but it's some type of influential person, and they have a child. And the child, they said, oh, you can have your child come to our school. tuition free, and they can stay over my wife's house or so-and-so's house. This is a lady, married lady, and she could have had kids also. And could have her help the wife with the house chores. So that was done. So I'm thinking now, I wonder if that school, whether that school, I don't mean to jump around like this, but yes, that was an elite school. It still exists today, to my understanding. But see, if you're going to do an illicit network, you may want different types of demographics. So a variety of demographics. So you have more control. The web is spread out. And so to get involved with officials or influential people who has kids going to the Dalton school. So the more you know about what's going on inside someone's household, rich and famous household, I guess also the more you can control them, right? Again, this is just speculation on my part, but I'm just free thinking right now, trying to make sense out of all this. So it turns out that this school, some scandal happens. That one of the, I think the headmaster of the school, there's some type of incident happens, and I think that he has to leave or something, and Jeffrey Epstein has to leave. It's kind of up in the air what really went on, because you have so many different people involved. You have the girl that's living in somebody's house, helping them with the house chores, as it was worded. And then you have people who messing around with children at the school. Somebody who's high up at that school. So now Jeffrey leaves. Again, this is a college dropout. And he hooks up with this investment thing for a couple of years. Did they say about 5 years or so? So why they would want to even bring on board someone that is a college dropout? Because back then, having a college degree was extremely important. Extremely. For jobs like that. One thing, like let's say someone is currently in college, but he wasn't like a business major. He was a physics and math. So it wasn't in like investment or anything like that. And he didn't have his, what they call Series 7 credentials to be able to work in the stock market, things like that. But somehow, and for some reason, he is brought on. And after, some type of scandal at a school. But again, it's not sure. I don't know whether he was directly involved in this scandal. But we know that he worked there. And we know in the future he was involved in illicit, evil activity with teenage girls. Okay? So, from there, it seems like everything seems to be coming together to make him what he became, what it's known that he became. And again, some scandal happens with that. And he has to leave that too. So what's going on? What is going on? So to have such a scandal like that, it seems like everywhere he's associated with, it's like a big scandal. something illicit. But somehow he slithers out. How is this? How is that this individual who doesn't seem to have any connection, he's just a regular guy, but somehow keeps getting connected with things that just go kaput. If it was anybody else, people would just say that he's a real loser and can't keep a job, right? Right? Many of us would say that. But later on, soon after, this person, it seemed like everything that he's involved in, even though on the surface it looks like a failure, but it actually builds him up and strengthens his, what will become his activity of being, yes, he was a pimp. He meets up shortly after that, some scandal in investments, with another Jewish person who owns Victoria's Secrets. Why is it called Victoria's Secrets? What is the secret? Is this secret about the teenage sex trafficking? Okay, you have Victoria's Secrets is a lingerie, ladies' lingerie, and they're very popular. And they have media attention all the time. They have fashion shows, high-end fashion shows with models, famous models. And with Victoria's Secrets, the only type of scandal I've heard or criticism about Victoria's Secrets, the models are too skinny and you're affecting the self-image of women, and we're tired of, this thing and other modeling, fashion shows or runways that the models are just too skinny. That's about it. But some of these models may be underage, okay? They're teenagers. And so my question with this Victoria's Secret's models, why we ladies, why do we allow the people in the industry who bring in these models, why do they use underage models, women who are under 18, to do runway models, showing of these lingerie? Now, if it's illicit to have sex with teenage girls, okay, and if what Jeffrey Epstein did was illicit and considered pedophilia, so why are we watching children modeling sexy lingerie like that? Why? Are we not complicit in this whole industry of sex trafficking and the romanticism of having very young-looking women, very skinny? And you know what else with the models? It was said that, the interview that Virginia Roberts did about 2 days ago from Panorama, that what was required that the girls, that they be underage and have small breasts. Now, why is it required to have small breasts? Well, one thing, when you're young like that, the child body, they want a childlike body, so they don't want someone that looks very developed. That's why the small breasts. Larger breasts associated with being older. So again, if you're pedophilia, you want someone that looks more prepubescent, right? So that's why have them skinny and tiny, because, children are tiny. Children have small breasts or no breasts. But they're used. And we're using young girls, young teenage girls, in these lingeries. And not just lingerie, but, in general. Using young girls that are underdeveloped. And these are things that some women aspire to look like. I know of a girl, I was told of a girl through a photographer. The girl was 11 years old at the time. And she told her parents, or parent, that if they didn't allow her to become a model, that she'll run away. So the family was afraid. And yes, I saw her on the cover. This was many, many years ago. This was about 37 years ago. This is in the early 1980s. And yes, she was a black model, black girl. And she was on one of the top black magazine covers. Yes. Yeah, she was only 11. She was on a cover. And she was being paraded around to different parties. Like I was being told by this photographer back then. And I didn't understand. I might have been 19 at the time. And he's telling me this account that, he's about the modeling industry. And this girl, and the girl was brought up to my attention because he had I was in the photographer's home. And there was an answer machine, and he played what was on the answer machine of a young girl, young sounding girl, leaving a message on his answer machine. And then he was telling me the story about her. And I think he was the photographer that did the cover for that black magazine. Okay? So it was interesting. So the story reminds me of the current models situations, how, with Virginia Roberts, how you're brought and invited to parties. So these guys, these photographers, it could be anybody. It could be the photographer, or maybe someone who owns clothing, a designer, let's say. And they are brought to parties and paraded around. And she was like a novelty because she's just 11 years old. Yep. Paraded at an adult party. And you start to wonder, what about these parents? And remember, also at the time in the early 1980s was Brooke Shields. She was about 15 at the time. And she was doing Calvin Klein. And again, she's small-breasted, very tiny. But they put a lot of makeup on her to make her appear older. But it just looked like a young girl with a lot of makeup. And she was doing very suggestive photos and commercials. I remember them to this day. You just go on the internet, that famous commercial by Calvin Klein. She's modeling Calvin Klein jeans. And she says she's in a very suggestive position, lying on the floor with her midsection, her privates, region showing. She's clothed, fully clothed, but her legs are all open so you can see her crotch. And she says nothing gets in between me and Calvin, something like that. Being very suggestive. So even back then in the day, in the early 1980s, teenage girls were being used to do highly sexualized, suggestive things in front of a camera. And again, that 11-year-old being put on magazine cover. And who knows what else? Maybe she did runway, but they were using them. So my question in all this with the Jeffrey Epstein case, well, even though he allegedly committed suicide or was suicided, why society is allowing teenage girls, underage girls, to be used in very sexualized media. Why isn't it considered pedophilia to use children in this manner? Why? My other question I ask myself, so here society allows teenage girls to see them in lingerie, to see them in commercials, doing suggestive stuff. You have to ask yourself these questions. So, you have Jeffrey Epstein. He had his network also in that resort in Florida that Trump owns. And it's confusing here. Now, Virginia Roberts says she started working at that resort. Her father worked at that same resort. And this Virginia Roberts, and I believe her story, but what I'm going to talk about now, it's not to put her down, but it's just to ask questions. Now, she shared very bravely that she was violated at the age of 7, sexually violated. And her life was a mess. And I'm not sure if she said that she ran away, but she eventually started working. Her father got her to work at that resort. And it's unclear to me where she was living at the time. Was she living with her parents? It's not really, I don't really know what happened with her. What her living situation was. But she has to work. And then she gets recruited there. And there was deception for her to go over to see Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah, she did say that she talked to her parents about it, about the interview. And how her trust was taken away. And she was sexually violated. And she was brought over. Now it was confusing to me. Now, something like that happens. And I'm wondering, what about her parents at this point? Did she tell her parents? Or were someone close in her family the one that molested her? So that's what I was thinking, that she didn't come forward, didn't say anything. At least she didn't say that she's talked to her parents. But I'm thinking, if something like that happens, yes, there's a lot of shame. Yes, and understandably so. Again, she's 17 at this time when the assault happened. She just turned 17. And that's young. And again, she's already traumatized, was violated as a 7-year-old. But there don't seem to be any communication with her family. And how she was able to fly internationally. Where's her family at this time? Was she in communication with her family at this time? Again, I'm asking these questions not to condemn her, but it's just to understand the dynamics in all this and the amount of fear this person had to be under to not let her family know. And that much control. You wonder how involved were her family, if they were. But it's never mentioned. But I did find out that the father was interviewed also. Her father, Virginia Roberts' father. I didn't hear the interview. The father I was told, feels very guilty that he got the daughter the job there. And if he would have known that he would want to protect her daughter, his daughter. But it's confusing to me. This whole story is really stressing me out. So now you have, she's recruited by a woman. And that's another issue I have here. That it seems like women and teenage girls are the people who seem to be actually bringing in the girls to do this wickedness, I feel so angry. I'm angry at women not helping out other women. Women being used like, what her name is, Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, Ghislaine Maxwell is an interesting character in all this too. And somehow even though she is said to be the madam in all this, this activity, she wasn't arrested at the time, 10 years ago. And it was said in court papers that Ghislaine Maxwell allegedly raped Virginia Roberts and was the one that showed her the ropes and how to do these so-called massages. Why isn't she being investigated? Why wasn't she arrested with Jeffrey Epstein the first time of his arrest and the second time of his arrest? And her background is really, really questionable. See, her father is Jewish and worked for Mossad, or was involved with the Mossad agency. Mossad is the Secret Service equivalent to the CIA of Israel. She's from Britain. Her mother is non-Jewish, but her father is Jewish. But again, there's a strong Jewish connection in all this. And she's what they call is a socialite from Great Britain. Socialite. These are like people who somehow you don't know what they do for a living. They're just there. And they mingle with other people of equal status. They don't really have to work. They're from rich backgrounds, influential backgrounds, and they all schmooze together. And they love their parties and gatherings. And after her own father is murdered and found, allegedly murdered while he was on his boat, that was when Ghislaine Maxwell hooks up with Jeffrey Epstein. And the two are like Bonnie and Clyde. They work very closely together, and it said that they were dating each other. Now, if Jeffrey Epstein has this sexual addiction, and a bird and a feather flock together, usually. Again, I don't know this Ghislaine Maxwell. I never met her or anything like that. I don't know her. But I question these networks of people. Now, this Ghislaine Maxwell, again, is what they call a British socialite. She had connections with the British royal family. And we all know that the British royal family have skeletons in their closets, right? Like Prince Charles having an affair, and was said, according to the late Princess Diana in her book, that she fears that her husband, Prince Charles, is going to murder her via car accident. And that is what happened to her, right? The late Princess Diana. And who was connected with Prince Charles but a guy by the name of Jimmy Savile, a known pedophile and also a person who likes to have sexual activity with dead bodies. I kid you not. And this person was like a liaison between the late Princess Diana and Prince Charles to be a mediator. And he's not even a mental health provider. He was a disc jockey. He worked on with children or something. So he was a real seedy guy. So it seems to be a network of people who have sexual addictions that's involved in this royal family. So again, this Ghislaine Maxwell is a socialite and has connections with the person by the name of Prince Andrew, the brother of Prince Charles. Okay? And so this Ghislaine is allegedly having sex with teenagers in their grooming to be used as bait, sex candy for the rich and famous people. And so, a bird and a feather flock together. So you have the royals who have their scandals and sexcapades. And this Prince Andrew is allegedly having sex with this Virginia Roberts at least 3 times. And there's a lot of activity going in and out of that, Jeffrey Epstein's house in New York City. Why? What's the connection in all this? It's a connection somewhere with royalty, with their sexual practices, with their association. Why is it that, I thought the British royal family are selective in who you get associated with, who you to associate with, because it's all about their image. And yes, it is known that the ladies of the, women that's in aristocracy, that they go to what they call finishing school. The finishing school is in Switzerland. So I'm wondering how even these finishing schools, as it's called, are they involved in any way with the sexualization of these young women. I do not know whether the males in aristocracy have a finishing school to go to. Well, evidently, it seems like these schools that of the elites in Europe seem to produce people of poor quality in judgment and activity. And again, Jeffrey Epstein was also acquiring girls from this school in Palm Beach. It's a poor community, this school, at least a lot of the people that go there, the people that attend this school are poor white people. And they were recruited from there. They had brought over a woman to stay around the school and offer this recruiter money for every head that joins in. For every person that's recruited, you'll get money. So ladies, again, see, there's a responsibility that we all should have to one another. That seems to be failing. Now, these girls are being brutalized by this Jeffrey Epstein and also allegedly this Ghislaine Maxwell. But none of you are telling. You say just enough to lure these your comrade, your fellow student, your fellow young teenage girl to do massages rather than saying upfront what it is or telling your parents. It's really telling. Why are you doing this to each other? And I mentioned this before in another audio. That when you saw what was really happening, to tell your folks, but again, it's a lot of shame involved. It's a lot of shame. And yes, I think any young girl will have shame, and so you don't want your family to know. And it was just by chance that a parent did find out about one of their daughters that was recruited to give massages. But again, see, this is a network, and this seems to be a practice that has been perfected, and that's why it lasted for so long. So girls are being not telling the other classmates, hey, this person is hurting us, but I want this money. So it's a lot of fear and intimidation and this need for money. But again, these girls, many of them, they are living at home. So why you need all this extra cash? I say this with a mindset, through my experiences. I lived with my folks. I didn't need money per se, but yes, I would want money. Girls would get allowances. Some people would have allowances. Some people get bigger allowances than others. But the need to have so much at such a young age. I didn't really have requirements or things that require hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So society is becoming very materialistic, and girls and young people are being indoctrinated that you have to have things, you have to have bling to be somebody. And I think these shows that these runway models do, like the Victoria's Secrets, that it's showing you youth, to embrace youth, to embrace, to be somebody you have to have these status names. But in the end, it's causing your dismay, your destruction. And so I'm saying, don't fall for it. The illusions, or you have to have a smartphone, and you have to have a certain type of handbag. These are all enticements to entice you young people, that in order to be in the in crowd, you have to have these things. And so the things that you are willing to do, and it's done by design against you, to force you to want to have, to do these things, such as giving massages, or false promises of college. You just do A, B, and C. Oh, we just a massage, and it's not. So they're not even being honest with you, ladies, young ladies. They're lying to you from the very beginning. It wasn't about a massage. It was about control. To control your bodies and your mind. To eat to such an extent, to such a state as deceiving your own. So again, this school in Florida may be the recruiting depot for that demographics. So that school being used, and again, you learn about the possibly maybe the families of these students. Maybe some of them did have money that went to that school. Who knows? And again, you have the Dalton School in New York City. So again, they're women, they're young people being pulled into this network. And why this? Why? How is Jeffrey, who is a pimp, but he's a pimp with a cause, a vision, a plan that seems to out-parallel the so-called typical pimp. This Jeffrey Epstein, he had his network for the rich, famous scientists, colleges, such as Harvard. So they're being used for influence. And it turns out, again, that he was getting involved, Jeffrey Epstein was getting involved with science. And he wanted, get this, that he wanted, if anything happened to him, he wanted his head and his penis to be saved. How sick. And also, he was getting involved with science because he wanted to produce children. What were these children for? Okay. It is said he was to use 20 girls at a time to impregnate them. Now, with this guy, Jeffrey Epstein, now, it seems like, in my opinion, that it seems like a person like that, when they're telling you stuff, that what they want to do, they already done it. They're already done it, because they're not that stupid to blow their cover about what they're really about. But it's about a network of control of, in essence, like a MK Ultra upon these girls. These girls were like robotic. They just did whatever what was said. And a lot of these mind control things are done through rape, molestations, right? And that's what was happening to these girls, a traumatization. So you can use these girls to do anything. Be spies. Again, just speculation on my part. But really, if you're going to have these girls do these things, these sexual activities with all sorts of people, you can also want information from what these people have, right? It's not just having sex with these people. It's also about information. So it's just food for thought with regard to that. That information may be exchanged from the adult to the child, and then it's passed on. And yes, this Epstein had cameras, video cameras, audio in hidden places in his home. But why? Why this guy with a background that is like just came out of nowhere, and he got so influential so quickly? Well, you have this blackmailing, and then you have the colleges like Harvard, and then you have the CEO of Victoria's Secrets, right? So you're getting them there. And somehow they all fit in. And I'm wondering, what is the connection? So it's not just about him just being a pimp and just want money. This guy wants influence and wants to perpetuate his being by impregnating 30 girls at a time. And maybe that's also why he has all those islands in faraway places, in the middle of nowhere. Who knows what other properties he may be affiliated with? You think because he's dead that it's not happening right now? The trafficking and the use of the women or the girls? It doesn't just stop. My instincts say that it's still going on strong, this whole network. And everybody seems to be friends with everybody else. And everybody seems to be connected. And it seems like all the people in the inner circle in all this, there's a strong Jewish Zionist connection in all this. And these all seem to be working as a team. So if you have this network and now you want to reproduce yourself, sounds like an army of control, working for the same factions, a global network of control, utilizing teenage girls, and I wouldn't doubt if there's a teenage boy network also. But right now you're just hearing about the teenage girls being exploited. So, in all what I've said so far, why are we sending our kids to schools like Harvard that was associated with Jeffrey Epstein and receiving money by Jeffrey Epstein? So it's more like buying people. And again, the royals, Fergie, who was married to Prince Andrew, she collected money too from Jeffrey Epstein, right? So why do we even follow people? Why do we follow the royals? Why do the people of Britain allow people, the royal family, to be associated with Jeffrey Epstein, it has been ties to illicit stuff like with Jimmy Savile and Prince Charles, but they go and live unscathed, unaffected by their associations and possible involvement in these sexual activities. Your tax dollars are supporting creepy people with creepy friends, but they require you to be proper, but they are constantly revealing what they're all about, what type of people they associate with, and you permit it. You pay their salaries. You do all that. And when their house, like the Queen, when her residence had caught fire, she wanted you to pay for her private house to rebuild it. That is her private property. It's not state property. But she wanted you, with your tax dollars, to pay for something that she should pay for herself. Their whole family is involved with perverts doing questionable things. And I think this is all trying to tell you people that it's a time to say no. It's a time for the so-called working class of Britain, in my opinion, to say enough is enough, and that the Queen is not really protecting you, and that I would presume that she knows all what's going on, because I'm sure she has advisors, or maybe a spy network herself, as to know what her children are doing, who they are involved with. But you just hear silence. I believe she knows everything what's going on. Right? Everything. You are what type of people you associate with. So I think it's a wake-up call for the people of Britain to say no to the royal family, to the whole institution that's been in power for thousands of years of control over the masses. And you're standing for it. It's time to say no. And you have that grooming network that's also happening in Britain as well that I talked about in the past. That they're sending people to rape, gang rape British girls in these things. And they're not being put in jail, these rapists. And if you out these guys, you're told that you're a racist or a bigot, because a lot of these grooming things done are people from other countries and other religions other than so-called Christianity. And again, you're standing for it, and so it's a violation on you again, people of Britain. It's time to say no. And you people who wear Victoria's Secret's lingerie, you're supporting an individual that may be involved in the sex trafficking of teenage girls. And you buy the lingerie, and you're being told by the messages and the lure that you have to have their underwear to be somebody, to be sexy. Yet you're looking at teenage girls, many of them might be teens, who are modeling this. And these girls could be used possibly in this whole Jeffrey Epstein web of control. They're all associated. And you people that have kids in the Dalton school, had hired, so that this man was hired, this Jeffrey Epstein was hired in the past, and he let them get away with this? Maybe you shouldn't go to that school either. See, together, people, you're more powerful than you realize. These are just a handful of people who are actually usurping your own personal power and have learned the art of intimidation, intimidating children, intimidating adults, that if you say anything, you're going to be disappeared, right? So I commend those now ladies, but those teenage girls who have been coming forward and sharing their information with the authorities to warn, to have prosecuted these people, these adults who tricked them to a quick way of making money. And it was all about lying and intimidating and fooling these girls to force them to do horrible, horrible things. But I think all this is, again, a global network and possibly a Jewish network to control governments, such as the royal family of Britain, to control presidents, such as the President of the United States, and other countries. Once you're able to control, you can tell them what you want them to do for you. It's all, everybody involved in this thing, all seem to be part of this particular ethnic group. You make up 1% of this world population, but you control massive networks, what it looks like. And so I think that is a possibility. That's what it could really be. World domination, using children to blackmail adults, important figures, and then their policies will become your policy. So it's time, people, parents, to protect your children, to let your children know that you love them, and that if you make a mistake, that it's okay to come to them and say, I made a mistake. Don't have your children afraid of you so much that when something does happen to them, that they are afraid. You don't want them afraid to come to you and let them know, so that now they can be protected by you. And so together you can go to the authorities and expose them. Let's start exposing these creeps, these pedophiles. There's one more thing I wanted to talk about, really. I'll try to be brief. But you have people, again, these young teenage girls, 17-year-olds, see this whole prostitution thing, or sex trafficking. See, there's also biasness. There's a racial component in all this. It's all evil, regardless what you call it. It's all evil being done against young girls, young women. Now, these girls who have come forward, who have been abused by Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, they call it trafficking, sex trafficking. But as we all know today, that this is a global thing, the sex industry. But I'm concerned as a woman of color, as a black woman. Now, prostitution of blacks, Now, it seems like when it's blacks being trafficked, these girls are called prostitutes and are thrown in jail, but yet they're the same age as these girls with Jeffrey Epstein. Why is it when it's a black or person of color, why they are called prostitutes, and while with these white girls with Jeffrey, why is it called trafficking? Right? See, when you call a person a prostitute, one thing, it's illegal to be a prostitute. So the name stigmatizes the girl. She's not perceived as a victim of being underaged. Why is it? If it's a cry against pedophilia, why are these girls, these black girls or people of color or poor people, children who are, minors who are involved in the sex trade, why is it not called pedophilia? It's happening right now, even outside of Jeffrey Epstein's network. You have young girls of color and white girls, all types of girls. Why is it not, why the sex trade, why isn't it called a pedophilia ring? It's called prostitution. And so there's not a care about these people. These girls are thrown in prison, and if they don't lie when they get caught by the authorities, they'll get beat up. So a lot of these girls that are caught, they say that they actually 18 or over 18. So the police have to let them go, and if they don't know the girl's true identity, they have to let the girl go. But this is going on right now. There's no reason for people to seek out prostitutes. This is a social ill that's happening, and people are developing sex addictions out there. Why this sexual addiction? Why? This is a social disease, and the society is now saying and dividing on racial grounds who would be classified as a prostitute even though they're underage, and then who is going to be classified as human trafficking. And these girls also are underage. They are both evil, and they are both illicit and what they call pedophilia. Pedophilia. And these law enforcements are condoning this. We have to really start to speak out. Pedophilia is pedophilia. If it's illegal for and considered pedophilia of a 17-year-old girl having sex with an adult, it's pedophilia no matter what the race is of the person. But yet you're allowing them to model being underage and have an adult lure at them. We have to wake up as a society and say no, and to protect our girls. And we also need to protect our boys. If it's girls are being networked, I'm sure you have the boys being networked too. Let's start to wake up people and wake up society, and let's start getting the help we need to cleanse our society of these sexual addictions and perversions that are getting worse and worse. So this is all food for thoughts for us to wake up, and clean out society of this filth. Thank you guys for listening. Bye-bye.